welcome to another episode of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? And I am so glad you're back with us today. This is amazing. By the time this is aired, we'll be 3 years old. Thank you so much for coming in and staying and telling friends. And if this is your first time, because maybe you know my wonderful guest for today, and you're coming because you want to see, because you're a fan and you wanted to see her. Welcome, welcome. I'm Karen E. Osborne, your host. I'm the author of 4 novels, and my latest is True Grace, which is a historical fiction. And my work in progress comes out at the end of this year. And Aime Ali Card, we're so glad you're with us. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm looking forward to this conversation. Aime is the author of The Tiger Bells, which I can't wait to hear the story of how she got hooked on this topic. I'm very, very intrigued on how you how that came about. But her book debuted on January 2nd of this year, and she is the nonfiction editor of a literary magazine. How do you pronounce the name of the magazine?
It's called Pangirus.
Pangira. And
Pangirus.
she is a board member for the Women's National Book Association, the Boston chapter, and she serves on her town's cultural council, supporting educational programs. Very cool, very interesting background. So, first of all, congratulations, right? Getting a
Thank
book
you.
out there, like, whoa. And I understand
Thank
it's
you.
selling like crazy.
I think it's been doing really well. Very exciting.
It really is. So, before we dive into the book itself and how it came about and why you thought about it, take us back a little bit and tell us about your writing journey. Were you always going to be a writer? When did you decide? Tell us a little bit about that.
I kind of took a different path. I think a lot of people go from more art, being interested in art, to as I get older, going into writing. But for me, I was always writing, even though I never consider myself a writer. And it's still kind of hard to consider myself a writer because I'm just interested. I read a ton, and but I always used to write when I was younger, just to journal and just to get my thoughts out, and I would make up stories just for my own entertainment or to make my family laugh. But it really didn't turn into something serious. I went to college and majored in art history, and that really taught me how to research deeply and critically. And so I think I carried that, through my adult life. And then I started getting back into writing really when my children were young, and I was telling them stories again. And I started thinking, this is something that's just kind of always been in me, and maybe I need to bring it to the forefront. And one thing led to another, and I just got deeper and deeper into the writing community. And um, then I came out with a couple of books. This is actually my first traditionally published nonfiction narrative. It's more research oriented, which is more my background. But the first one I wrote was just about my experience with breast cancer, raising small children, and that was just important for me to get out there. So that process taught me a lot about the nonfiction narrative. So it was really helpful when the Tiger Bells came along.
What was your second book?
So that is And Beneath It All Was Love. It's on Amazon. I just self-published it and it's still there. So if you looked up the Tiger Bells on Goodreads, it will be right underneath the Tiger Bells. It's actually really it's the kind of thing that you would want to give a friend who, if you were going through a cancer journey, you could give a friend to say, this is what I'm going through. I don't want to talk to you about it right now because I'm fine. I'm not really fine, but I'm going to tell you I'm fine. And then you can read what it's like. So that was kind of the reason. Just the same thing that I had where writing is kind of therapeutic to me. It was just about, getting this out. And then when I realized I had so much, I thought maybe it could be helpful to other people too. So,
Ah, that's powerful. So how are you? Are you okay?
oh yeah, thanks. I'm almost 10 years out. So it's been a while now, and I just have my checks and I just keep doing everything they tell me to do. And so far, so good. I'm gonna knock on my desk.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. I'm so glad to hear that. So okay. So the Tiger Bells. Now you have to tell us how and why you decided to show. Let's show everybody the cover.
Here's the Tiger Bells. So
Isn't
the
that
Tiger
beautiful?
Bells, yeah, I love this photo. I love how they're just so casual. It really shows so much about their story. And what I love about their story, they've got their arms around each other. You can just tell they're sisters. They love each other and they've been through thick and thin together. And at this point, I'm going to give away the ending, but everybody knows because it's history, but they had just won the gold medal at Rome and their faces just kind of show the triumph of what they did.
Yeah. So
Sorry, my
how did you get
dog.
interested? How did you decide this was what you were going to do?
So I had always thought of the Tiger Bells as the just kind of epitome of athletic talent. I'd grown up knowing about them. My grandfather was a coach in Nashville at the time that the Tiger Bells were in their real prime, these Tiger Bells he knew. And he got to know Coach Temple really well over the years. They were friends. And so I just grew up knowing about the Tiger Bells and knowing that they were just the ultimate, athletic talent, especially for women at that time. There weren't a lot of famous female athletes. And so I remember one time I was in a big family and I was younger in the family. Everybody asked me when I wrote this book, do I run? And I do not run. I'm a terrible runner. And I had to do the track club because my older brother and sister were very good runners and they were running in the track club. And so that's what you do. You have to do what your older siblings are doing. And so I went to a meet and I don't know, I was doing well that day and I got third place out of four people. So I got my first ribbon and my dad was trying to puff me up to keep me going. And he said, you were so good. You were looking like a tiger bell. You were as fast as a tiger bell. And I knew what that meant. That was my first kind of memory of like just knowing what that meant. And I thought I was so proud. I was like, wow, that is something. And of course, everybody laughed in the car because, I didn't. I was not as fast as the Tiger Bell, not even close. But when I grew up and I would talk about them and I realized that nobody else knew who they were. And I was just the more I was thinking about their story, I'd gotten Coach Temple's autobiography, and I showed it to my daughter, who was 11 at the time. She was looking for somebody to write a school project about, and I thought, how about this one? And she was fascinated. She was reading this. He was at the time 80 years old. He was a coach for a team that happened, and she's an 11-year-old, and she was thinking that the Tiger Bells were the coolest things she'd ever heard of. And I said, I agree. I think the Tiger Bells are the coolest thing I've ever heard of too. And it just made me think that how many more people that they could be an inspiration to that have not had the chance to know their story. And I just thought maybe I could bring it to a new generation. And the more I dug, the more I just really felt like more people should know about them. And if I could help in any way, I
Cool.
tried.
That's cool. I have to ask you a totally off-topic question, then we're going to come right back to the Tiger Bells. Do you have a visitor in your office? Who is visiting? Who's moving
Serendipity.
around?
That is serendipity. We call her Sari. And I don't know, like birds are going crazy outside. We got a little snow overnight here in Boston. And so I don't know, something spooked her and she
Something
jumped off the
interested
couch.
her. Okay.
Yeah. That's Sari. She's
Um,
a little field spaniel. She'll probably hop up on the couch again.
she's very welcome. She's most welcome. So what questions that I didn't think about in advance of speaking to you, but kind of hit me now. And that is, you said that it was at a time when there weren't a lot of women athletes, that were heightened. Did they run into a lot of racism as well?
Oh, absolutely. They so in 1960, which was the year that they went to the Olympics, I talk about in this book, that was when John Lewis was actually starting with James Lawson was starting the sit-ins in Nashville. Um, and so that was a part of their generation. They felt like, they grew up in the Jim Crow South, and the reason why they weren't, coached with my grandfather is because the schools were still segregated at the time. And so it was definitely that was I talk about it in the book. It was a struggle that they all went through. And a lot of the athletes that were recruited to run for the Tiger Bells had come from May Fags, for example, came from New Jersey. And so she was coming into the South. It wasn't a culture that she was used to having to deal with. And it was so bad for her the first year she almost left. Um, Barbara Jones came from Chicago. And so it was real similar issue for her where she was experienced. And her mother was nervous about her. She said she had a hot mouth. She wouldn't, if somebody said something to her, she'd say something back. And her mom was so terrified that she was going to get herself into trouble. So it was definitely something that they dealt with. And especially, I mean, in Nashville, the Tennessee State campus is in an area of town. They had a lot. They felt really protected and where they were going to school, and then they had a lot of schools around them. They had Fisk, they had American Seminary. They had a lot of schools around them where they felt really supported in their community. But then they would have to travel to Alabama or Texas to go to some of their away meets, and they couldn't get out of the car. They'd have to really be careful about where they stopped to get gas, and they wouldn't necessarily be able to use the bathroom. They'd have to hit the fields. They talked about that being a real struggle, especially in that time when they were in their prime, but also just being women. So the men's sports, even at Tennessee State, had all the attention, but nobody really cared about watching the women's sports. And so one of the other reasons why Mayfags almost left Tennessee State the first year was that they didn't have funding to send her back to the national meet in her first year. So she had been a national champion by the time she came to Tennessee State for a few years already, and she wasn't able to get back to the national meet to defend her title because they just didn't have the funding for the school. I just can't imagine how frustrating that would be for somebody who was really an elite athlete at the time. She had already been to the Olympics and twice, and so
Wow.
they had a lot of challenges that they had to go over. Not even just becoming strong enough to be that level of athlete, but people doubting them and facing racism and misogyny and all the issues that they had to go through at the time was really a challenge for them.
Yeah, wow. I'm so glad it has a happy ending. I'm really
It
glad.
does. It does. Absolutely.
So,
And they have a lot of fun along the way too. I mean, they were hanging out with Cassius Clay at the Olympics, and they were they kind of got into trouble with the coach because they were dancing too much, and he said, "You're not earning medals for dancing. You came here to run, and you can't expect your legs to dance all night and then perform on the track the next day." And so he instituted a dancing ban, but they would still kind of try to sneak out because they're celebrated the world over. Everybody wants to dance with them and learn all the moves from the American bandstand, and you know they were gonna show them. So
plus it's a
everybody.
big cultural thing, I mean, dancing is just part of the culture that they came from. That's what you did. You danced, you still, I'm 75, I still danced. It's just, it's just one of those things. So you said that they inspired reading about their coach inspired your daughter. Um, what do you want? And you said you hope that it can inspire other people. So
Mhm.
what is that inspiring message that you're hoping your readers, or messages that you're hoping your readers will walk away with?
Well, I think, it's triumph over adversity. It's, not giving up when somebody says no. But one of the things that I think is really special about the Tiger Bells is how they work together as a team. And I think that's something that we, in a lot of ways in our culture, it's just the individual is really celebrated. But they really felt like they kind of had a motto on their team that you don't graduate winning. You don't leave your team until you bring the next generation up to beat you. And so that to me was so powerful. You not only lifting the next generation up to you, but you want them better than you. You want to you're one step in the progress that needs to make that to go along the way. And I just think it's just so important. I mean, in the writing community to help other writers and
Mhm.
in teams to you all are better when you're helping each other. When you give each other the best chance to shine, everyone is better. And so I think that's the most important. I hope that's what people get out of it because I think that was, especially at that time, something really special that they did.
Yeah, wow. I love that. I love that. And you're right about the writing community. We're so blessed that we help each other, we support each other, we share information, share opportunities. And it's such a singular profession in so many ways. We're so fortunate because we form writing groups and we find each other, which is
Mhm.
a which is an amazing and wonderful thing. So I love that. So people always ask me this. I don't know if people ask you this, but I actually had a class of 11-year-olds saying, how long did it take you to write your books? And I said, well, how long do you think it might have taken? And one of them said, 2 weeks. And at first I thought, that's so funny, how ridiculous. But then I read an article in the paper recently that Ian Fleming, who wrote all of the James Bonds, he did them all in 2 weeks. So my
Oh my
11-year-old wasn't so so far off. So how long did it? Because you
gosh.
said, look at all the research you had to do. So by the time you gathered most of your research and you actually started writing, how long from that point to, oh my goodness, I have a manuscript that I want to take to a publisher? How long did that take?
Um, it was about 6 years of writing, and it's been like about 2 years just kind of getting it through the publishing process. But I'd say about 6 years of writing. It wasn't the whole time only focused on that because it took me a while to, there are other projects and also just to meet the people that I needed to meet and to just get through all the hoops and hurdles and all that needed to happen. But hopefully the next one won't take so long. But it did. It took a long time. I mean, a lot of that also was just kind of learning. There's some things that I'll be able to apply to the next project that maybe hopefully will make it a little quicker. But
Yes. So you did a lot of personal interviews, not just
I
paper research and online research, but face to face.
I did. I did. I got to do some great
Wow.
interviews. And I also got access to some archives of unpublished interviews that were just
Mm.
treasures because a lot of those were from a while back. So memories were fresher and also issues were a little bit more intense because, as you get older and you're just wanting to forgive everybody and say it was all fine. But, when you're young and no, that was a big problem. I had a, people are just a little bit more frank when they're young. And so that was really I worked particularly with Dwight Lewis, he was a reporter for a long time with the Tennessean, and he went to TSU and he knew everybody that was involved, and he has been collecting interviews his whole life, and he was so generous in sharing a lot of those and just his knowledge about the tiger pelt. So he was a particular help in that regard. So Um, a
Oh,
lot,
that's great.
a lot of talking, a lot of digging deep, a lot of newspapers.
Yeah. But you enjoy researching.
I do. I do.
I
I
could
mean, it's
tell.
I like
I
digging
could
into.
tell.
I mean, something, gets my curiosity, and the first thing I'm doing is let's dig into that a little bit more.
Find
And the
out more
more,
about it.
yeah.
So kind of shifting gears a little. So you're an editor for a literary magazine. You're the nonfiction editor, and we have a lot of writers who watch this show. Do you have any like little pithy advice that you could give, share?
For a literary magazine. So it's just I'm not the nonfiction editor anymore. I was associate nonfiction editor, but I do the generations column, which is the family column, which is
Mm,
really great. But I say for submitting to literary magazines, I would just say write and submit. That's pithy, just write and submit. But also it does really help to have a writing partner that's going to be really honest with you, because a lot of times when something is just in your head, it's maybe not exactly the way that you meant for it to shine, and maybe you need to like push. I mean, I you push just a little deeper on a few points. A lot of times I'll get something that's it's so close, but you need to dig deeper in a few places. And I'm not sure if I asked you to dig deeper, would you do that for me? So sometimes it's a decline, and I think it was closer than I would have rather not had to decline that one because it had a lot of good things about it. I mean, actually, by the time you're submitting to a literary magazine that you found a literary magazine, it's not a lot of bad writing. We don't get a lot of like really bad writing. Most of what we get is pretty good. It's just whether it's, really hitting all the boxes and at the right time. And maybe we haven't done so
yeah.
many of those things before. So,
Yeah, that makes good sense. When you touch your earbuds, it screeches a little.
oh, does it? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, I'll try not to. I'm trying to get them to keep them from falling out of my ears. But okay, I didn't realize that was coming through. I won't do that anymore. Sorry.
Not a worry, not a worry. So you said you started this conversation by you are a reader, which all writers are, but that you do a lot of reading. And so I know this wasn't an easy question, but I need you to tell us about some books that you would like to recommend to our audience.
So I have the things that I've been reading lately have been just, the kind of things that everybody's talking about. The like Barbara Kingsolver's Demon Copperhead was so, so good. And I read Rebecca Mackay's I have some questions for you, which it really stuck with me for a long time because it's that kind of dark campus, but a little bit of the Me Too issues, and the protagonist is a Gen Xer, which is my generation, and that one kind of hit a lot of buttons. It was kind of strange. But then this one, We Are Not Like Them, I thought was really interesting because it was a team of writers that did it together, and it was one one of the main characters is a reporter, and one of the main characters was the wife of a policeman, and there was a shooting, and so they were on like both sides of the issue, and so that I thought was really fascinating. And then Gone Like Yesterday is another kind of campus one that was really good. I don't know if you read this one, but it's got some magical realism, and it my son was applying for college when I read this, and so the main character is a college admissions advisor, and so I thought, but then she goes into like a family mystery, and um so that one I thought was pretty interesting. And then the thorn puller, I think, is something that I didn't see around that much, and it was really beautiful. It's a translation by Hiromi Itu. I hope I'm saying that right, but she's a Japanese poet, and translated into English, but the translation, but she goes back and forth between California and Japan. She's living, she's a mother with teenagers and she's taking care of aging parents, which is something I just really related to. And
Mm,
it's quiet and meditative, but so beautifully written and just kind of contemplative. And so I
mm.
really, those are probably three of
They all
that.
sound wonderful. That's what happens to me on this show every week. I want to read the books that of the person I interview, but I also want to read all the books that they recommend because it exposes you to things that maybe you wouldn't normally pick up. When someone
Mm.
shares something with you, it's like, no, I don't know that author. The first three that you mentioned, like everybody's reading, yes, but
Mhm.
then these are new to me. So that's excellent. Thank you so much for those recommendations. Now, our audience is totally intrigued. They are so excited. They want to read your book. They want to get to know you. How can they do that?
So just go to my website. It's just amycard.com. So it's AIME dot, I mean, sorry, AIMECARD .com. I was about to give you my email, which is fine too. You can reach out to me. Amy.card is my email. Amycard.com is my website. So yeah, I've got all the info there. So can
Yeah.
and I do a Substack about some bit about the publishing, some things about what I'm reading, some things about Tiger Bells, a little bit of history each week. So, or actually, it's more like once a month that the Substack comes out.
They can
But
just
yeah,
sign
and
up
I'm
for
on all
that.
the social. Oh yeah, you can sign up for that on Substack.
Excellent, excellent. And do you have a Facebook page? Do you have an Instagram? Are you on
Yeah. Facebook
TikTok?
and Instagram. I've done a couple things on TikTok. I'm trying to wade into the book talk thing there. I really like Threads. The whole women following women thing on Threads is actually pretty fun right now. Although I'm not making any progress. I'll start a thread, like a tweet, and it just doesn't really go anywhere. But if you say women following women, it's like 300 people. Like, so it's just, I haven't quite figured that one out just yet. But I'm mostly for social media, it's mostly on Instagram, and it's just Amy Card author. Um, and Facebook is the same, Amy Card author. You'll find them all on my website. I have all the links, so that's probably the easiest way.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you. So I hope you all have enjoyed this conversation. I hope you're going to follow Amy. I hope you're already following me. And I hope I will see you next time, next week, on What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? Thank you so much for being with us. And I hope you have a great week. Bye, everybody.